Hi there, everyone. So tonight we're doing a introduction to genealogy workshop. And so today we're just going to go through some of the basics when it comes to genealogy. And this is for anyone that may never have even started genealogy. They might find it interesting, or they simply just have an interest in genealogy that somebody else might have started and they want to continue, or other ways that people want to connect with their family's history. And so tonight I might make it shorter, but between the hours of 6 and 8, I had some technical difficulties starting off, so we're on now. We changed from Zoom to Facebook Live to reach a larger audience, so I'm sorry if you're catching on to it now. But I do hope that you catch this recording. If you are on Zoom, I apologize. But let's go ahead and get started and try to work through some of these pieces when it comes to genealogy and these different pieces like that. And so let's see how we start. Again, my name is Andrew Henley. I developed Pleasant Hill Historians as a way of really capturing a larger group of people to understand what genealogy is, the history behind it, and then some of the key components to understanding who we are as participants in this world. So there's some of what I've done. I do consider myself amateur genealogist, but I have been doing this for about 10 years. I do some historical research, so you'll see that the panel down here on the Millennium Park I did work on and design. And then I also did one for Quaker Falls, which is a local park that's currently under wraps. But then the Civil War series is a educational series for children in 5th and 6th grade in my local community. At the end of the series, they go to Gettysburg, and they have a 3-week series before that. And so I say I dedicate my life to history and education, but I think that they really do pair one and one. So this is a little bit about me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have throughout the way. And so what is genealogy? I think this is a great question to start off with. Genealogy is the study of family's history and one's start therein. Family history, as you know, it could be folklore, it could be the stories that have been passed down, it could be simply the photos and pieces like that. But what it takes is all of these pieces and it lays it out in a very direct way. And people have heard about genealogy most recently through Ancestry.com, but also Family Search. But everyone has a parent, has some DNA that we are composed of, and I think that in itself is is where we can really start with ourselves and work backwards. And so, where to start? Again, starting with yourself. Research what you have. A lot of times we come across some histories that many families have passed on. It could be folklore. It could be that you're related to John Brown, the revolutionist, as my family once said. I have yet to prove that, but there's really, really interesting stories that have been discovered or pinpointed through genealogy that started out as folklore, but with every folklore there is a portion of it that could be actual truth behind it. Some of the other pieces are pictures that family have left behind, or the family members themselves. I know that they have a great collective memory that that could be something to tap into who their parents were, who their grandparents were, interesting stories about those people. They might have left artifacts behind or diaries, and each of these pieces offer a different component, a different perspective to their genealogy. And so as we go forward, I wanted to start off with creating your account in Ancestry. Now, I know that there are some people that that they don't want to pay for Ancestry, and I am throughout college and throughout high school, I also agreed with this because it does get kind of costly if you don't have the time to use it. And so what I wanted to do was walk you through how to create an Ancestry account just for the sole purpose of organizing your information and having that as a possibility to go through. So I did pull up ancestry.com right here, and I can go ahead and hit sign in the top right hand corner. And then there's a button down here that says sign up today for free. And so we can click this. And then here you can type in your information. So let me just type in the information that I have. Ask for some simple pieces. And then you can go ahead and hit continue. Now, this is where there's a good question, like, do you pay for Ancestry? Do you not pay for Ancestry? We'll go through some of the perks later on, but for myself, I would say if I'm just starting out, I don't really know for sure if I'm going to be into this. I want to see what I have to start with, see what I can access through my family, and collect what I have first and what I have access to first. I personally wouldn't purchase just yet. You will have the opportunity to upgrade later on to have access to the US records, the world records are all access. You can see the benefits there, but with the benefits come a cost, of course. But for now, you can just click right up here on your name, and then it will take you to your profile, and then you can even go directly to your trees to start a new tree. So for instance, here you get to tell a little bit about yourself. And so I'm just going to do male, born in 1995. And it's going to ask you some pieces here. And so then it will like walk you through adding your parents, adding your grandparents, adding your aunts, your uncles, your cousins. And then you're able to really grow this out into a much larger tree. And I think that this is where you can host some of the information that's relatable to yourself, to your family, and different things like that. Let me just do this quick thing. So you do want to mark if they're living or not, and then it will give you if they're living, it is hid if your tree is private, and it won't show if there's other people accessing your tree. We'll go through some of the privacy concerns with this. The leaf that you're seeing here shows that there is a record that's on Ancestry about this individual. Let me go ahead and pull up my family tree for what I have, and then you can see kind of what it looks like whenever you build it all out. So here is my family tree, going back from myself into my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and then it can even go further. Each of these leaves offers some more information about the person. And so you can click on that individual. You can see the sources. Now, to add these sources, you do have to have an account. But to add this information here, you can add their birth, their residencies, their christening, their baptism. You can add a lot of this from the information that you are able to acquire through other repositories as well. And so you can also add web links. anything that you really have. Some of the, you see there, I do have a photo. Let me go to one that I know has a lot more pieces. So here, James was an uncle of mine, and so I actually have these photos at home. And so this is James and his wife, Sophia, and then you're able to have it public or private, and then other people can save that image to their tree. And I always enjoy seeing a face to a name because it really helps identify who the person is and give a nice recollection piece. So let's go back to the PowerPoint real quick, and then we'll be able to go through. So once you've created your account, you're able to add a lot of these components that you might not have had the opportunity without having an Ancestry account. Again, this helps you access your account wherever you are. If you come across a tombstone and you recognize the name, you can pull up on your phone and you can access to see if this individual is the individual that is in your family. I know I've done that a couple times. Once you start to build out your tree, you might have thousands of people. And you want to stay in line with all of that. So again, to purchase or not to purchase, I reviewed this quickly to begin with, but purchasing, in my opinion, again, you have access to a lot of the items in the card catalog. Let me show you kind of what the card catalog is. So if you're under here on search, you can go to card catalog. And this is all of the records that that they have for Ancestry that they've digitized or have access to. And you can even narrow it down to the US, the type of article or the type of item that you're looking for, and then it goes down to state, and you can get as specific using the filter. Sometimes I find that using the filters doesn't pull up the correct information of what I'm looking for. That's why a lot of times I do use the title and the keyword search whenever the filters are not at play. You might find other pieces relating to your family through these. Now, one specific instance might be Pennsylvania wills. And then you're able to simply click that and then see there's Beaver County tax records, and then there's some PA County slave records, but then here PA wills and probates. And so you're able to click on that and then access that if you have an account. So some other pieces, you'd depending on what you purchased, you'd have access to a newspaper account, a Fold 3 account, and each of these, the newspaper accounts might be able to offer you information about obituaries, information about news articles that were about your family, and you can keyword search those pieces. The Fold 3 account would be anything relating to military. A lot of this information you're also able to you're also able to find through other means. However, Ancestry offers a great repository for a lot of this this information. Family Search does provide some access to it, but then you do have to go on site to access that record. Now, if you're not purchasing, Ancestry is still great. Family Search is still great. Both offer a great opportunity to organize, access your files remotely, and then attach your scanned files. I think that these three pieces, it's a great organizing tool. Once you have thousands of people in your family, you want to make sure that you're organized. We'll touch upon that later in this presentation, but that's a great piece that I think that you want to make sure you're paying attention to, is organizing the information you have. Um, okay. Ancestry DNA and 23andMe. I just wanted to touch upon this really quickly because this content has been in the news recently about the security, whether to or whether not to do Ancestry DNA or 23andMe or none of them. Um, they do offer benefits. They are able to track down some family that you might not have realized could be a relation to you. It might also prove that you are related more closely than you had anticipated, surprising or not. But I think that what it also does is, for me, it really helped organize how I'm related to certain people that are on my tree. And so I'm able to see that they're my second cousin or my third cousin, and then go at it that way. Um, Now, I haven't done 23andMe myself. Although I do have cousins that have done 23andMe, they both offer beneficial information. And I think that the data sets are kind of what you're after. Um, Now, what I mean by data sets are whenever somebody participates in 23andMe or Ancestry DNA, they become a participant of all of that information. And um, a lot of it is relative to the individuals participating. And so your results are stronger based on how many people are participating. And so if you find that it's that Ancestry has reoriented the percentages you are of each ethnicity, the reason being is that their information has become finer, or that their science behind it has become stronger. Now, there's a lot of nuances behind this, but some of the key pieces, and we could do a whole episode on this, is health data. Do you do health data? Do you do not do health data? If I know that I'm predisposed to this condition, what will that affect my insurance? I personally didn't do health data. I didn't feel like I wanted to live with the knowledge of a preconceived condition on my shoulders. And so I chose not to. Now, if you are concerned about this, feel free, right ahead. I think it's great to know more about your DNA, more about what you might want to, what you might be predisposed to, but that's totally up to you. Security and privacy concerns. I know that the Pentagon released a paper recently saying that anyone that's doing work undercover, things like that, are advised, or in the military are advised not to. Now, the reason being is that we leave our DNA everywhere we go. It's hard to protect something like that. And so if somebody has access to our DNA, it might put our safety at risk. And so that's kind of why the Pentagon did release that. I think that privacy in general in the 21st century is a hard thing to hold on to. It really, really is. And so how are we able to be cognizant of what we're participating in actively or passively in order to safeguard ourselves or our family? Now, the community benefit, I wanted to touch upon this. I know we could do a whole episode on this, but the community benefits is that you'll probably have heard in the news recently about cold cases being solved through Ancestry DNA. And what they've done is that a cousin, they have DNA from a test kit or a kit in general or a crime scene or anything like that. They have that DNA there, and then they cross-run that against the participants that are in the databases through I think it would have to be through the courts. But what they're able to do is pinpoint the distant relation from the DNA that they have to maybe a possible match or a second cousin or a first cousin or even a parent or a sibling or a child that's within the database. And so they've been able to discover a lot of information regarding different people. Kathy, you had said you lost sound. Oh, there you are. Great. Glad to have you. And so the cold cases part, I think, is a really great community benefit. And so take a look, read more. We can do a whole episode on it. I'm happy to do that. But to go into a little more, local repositories. Now, when I mean this, I mean you're seeing local institutions, local colleges, local clubs, local historical societies, some state archives. Not all files are digitized. And so the biggest thing that we have to realize is that you might have 10% of what the archives has digitized. And so think of how much is out on Ancestry. And I think you'd find a great piece within the local repositories. But one repository that I didn't mention are graveyards. Graveyards are a great piece. Sometimes the family is buried next to each other, so you're able to see who that is next to you. Or who that is, not hopefully not next to you, but hopefully next to a distant family member of yours. But you're able to really write to some of these people. They are sleuths when it comes to local repositories. They know the place forwards and backwards, and if they don't, there's somebody in the community that has a great deal of knowledge about the history of the community, how the archives has been organized, who to contact. I find that local historical societies, people are very, very passionate about history, and that is awesome. And they know all the books, all the nooks and crannies to look in for the information that you're trying to achieve. Now, always go into these places with a goal. It's hard, I know, to focus because everyone has a parent, everyone has a story, everyone has 60, 70, 80 years of history that they've been able to collect over their time. And so think of all of the information that they might have left behind. And so it depends on what you're really after. If you're after just trying to find who's the next step or who's the next person back, I think that you're going to work fast. But if you're diving deep into your great grandfather, you can find a lot of information about them, should that information exist. And this is where you have to stay steadfast to it. Not all information is going to be there, sadly. It could have been destroyed. It could have never been documented, depending on what area you're from, what ethnicity you are. Sadly, there were times that information was just never documented about your family. Now, state archives offer their own benefits. So these would be legal documents that are at play, and you really have to look into that as an option. Again, each of these offer a great wealth of knowledge. I wanted to have a shout out to our local historical society. This is a historical society that I've been a part of since I was 13. But the Lawrence County Historical Society is located in Western Pennsylvania. It offers a great amount of information. It's just about an hour north of Pittsburgh. But this here, they have immigration papers, marriage licenses, wills, deeds, family files, photos, annuals or yearbooks. And there's such a vast amount of information that you can glean from this historical society. And I think that if you're starting off, again, collect what you have, go to a local place, and it's essentially if every county had this, I think that we'd have a great vast amount of of knowledge. I'm grateful to sit on the board of the Historical Society. We've done a lot of information. I'll talk about our immigration papers later in this episode, but I think if you're looking for a place to volunteer, it's a great place to do so. Now, I just wanted a quick review session. I'll go ahead and just talk about these pieces for myself, but if you want to share your thoughts or your experience, please do so. But these are just some questions to reflect on. So what attracts you to genealogy? For myself, I found that genealogy was able to really dive deeper into the foundational layers on which we stand. And that's a high level understanding of what genealogy is, but whenever we think of the property owners that are before us, we are just renting land in our life, and our time is limited here, and the land is shaped by the people that live on it. And so if you find this big rock, I know I have a picture of my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother, and some of my grandfather's siblings standing on this rock. And I was out in the woods one day, and there was this big boulder, and I recognized it from some odd angle. And I pulled up the picture of the image, and it was that rock, and it was my family standing on the rock. Really, really odd. But then I wanted to learn more about them and like how long my family has been on our property since 1808. And so there's a huge amount of history there. But then even at that, I recently acquired a new property, and that whole property has a whole history of its own. Now, this is more like property history, but it does dive into genealogy and how those stories really connect. Another question is do you have any interesting story, folklore that's influencing your interest? For me, I shared a story about John Brown, the revolutionist. I also have had stories of descendants of royalty or pieces that I have yet to prove. We always have a family reunion, and I think that the family reunions, you don't know how you're related to some people, but you are. This has always been a case at our family reunion. It's over 100 years now that we've been meeting. Oh, Kathy, yeah, I really do need to take a picture on that rock, no doubt. But our family reunion, we've been meeting for over 100 years, and I still don't know how we're related to some of them. And I've done extensive research on it. But, we're family. We still get together. And that's exactly the point of the family reunion, to find similar bonds and support each other. Diving into the next question, what resource do you believe will be the best for yourself? For me, I'm at a really late stage in my genealogy, but it could be middle. I don't know. People do this for decades. But I think that if I was just starting off, my family members, had I been able to go back in time and just ask the questions to my grandparents and ask some of the stories that talk about them as individuals, those are the stories that you're not able to capture. Unless they left a diary, unless there was like a recording of them, an oral history, you're missing that really personal end of it. Yes, there's going to be a marriage license, most likely. There's going to be a birth certificate or a death certificate, depending on when they were born or when they died. There's going to be some record of their life, maybe. But the concept is that if you are able to have that personal interaction with your family, that's that's an irreplaceable piece. I know for myself, I do have some oral histories I did of some of my aunts before they passed away, and just listening to their voice, they were very Polish, and just having them reminisce about their childhood or just hear them talk. It's something that we really don't have within our historical societies or archives or institutions. But it's those oral components that I think I found very valuable. So yeah, if you're starting off, start with your family. So what challenges are you foreseeing? Have you hit any roadblocks before? Um, yeah, I think that language problems are trouble for me at my moment. But whenever I was just starting off, there was more documentation about my dad's side than there was my mother's. Now, my dad's side they came to America in 1849 or 1841. And so they've been in the States for quite a while. But so there is a lot of documents about them. But my mother's side were immigrants from Poland and Lithuania and present day Belarus. And so there was not as much documentation about them. If there was, it wasn't represented in our institutions. There was a Polish Catholic Church that I was able to find some information about them. Again, it's all in Polish, but then there's also some smaller organizations that you might see as well. So again, review some of these questions, and I think that you'd be able to find your niche within this and go forward from there. And if you're happy to share those pieces, send me an email. I'll show you my email at the end, and you're welcome to correspond with me that way. Here's my biggest pet peeve. I love organizing. I say I'm getting my master's in organizing and retrieving information. And so you're probably going to collect thousands and thousands of photos and documents, and be sure they're organized. I always have this reflection of a family reunion, and somebody dumps out this box of photos. And this box this box of photos has no photo labeled. No photo, no idea on when it was taken, no idea on who took it, no idea on who they are, but everything is a collective memory. So they remember that Grandpa told them that this was Aunt Sally, and so it's Aunt Sally. And they never wrote the name on the back. And so I think that this is one thing that you have to be diligent with organizing. You have to write the names on the back in pencil. We could do a whole episode on proper preservation techniques. But I think that just having the documented image for who it is or where it is the biggest concern that I have. Now, how can I organize my files? This is a great question I always get. Personally, I do have some organizational tactics that I use. I do purchase some of my my archival supplies. Judy, yes, I have so much stuff that needs organized myself. You're welcome to come and organize it, but I could spend the whole lifetime organizing things. But what I've done is, let me share with you my database, I say. Oh, let me go to here. So I call mine the Henley Family Archives, but in here, what I did was I have my archives ID, my AID. I have the name of the archival item. I have a link to it on my Google Drive. I have what type of format it's in. and then I have whether or not I digitized it, whether or not it's on my website, what relatives are in it. I did use a 4-digit ID to identify my relatives, and then I identify what box it's in. I do have the dates, the month, and the year if I have it. But what this allows me to do, let's see, Letza Harlan wedding photo. I'm able to actually click on this. It pulls up the image of Letza on her wedding day. And then I can see that it's in box E. And then I can also sort this. So if I want to sort it by 0008, I can sort all the images I want about clear 0008. Give me 1 second. So then I can select these 3 pieces here. And so you'll see Letza Harlan wedding photo, her graduation photo, a letter. So this is a letter from, or Newcastle News article from 1887. This is another item that's from the Newcastle News, and then a graduation invitation. So this is 1886, 1889, 1887, 1888. And so this is kind of how I've organized it, because I tried to, it is a challenge, I do have to say. But by having this, if somebody asks me for that information about that one person, I'm able to retrieve it quickly and really dive deeply into it. So let me show you here, this one. I can select 0019, and all of these images are of, or documents or artifacts are of Uncle James. And so I have his visit, and so I have this digitized. There's Uncle James in the middle. I have him and his wife, which I did show you. Here's an article that talks about from the Kilgorley Western Argue. It's a Australian newspaper, but it talks about he is mentioned within this. Here's James Henley right there, and so I was able to organize all of this through my Google Drive, and then I just put a link to the document there. So this is like some of how I organize some of my stuff. I didn't show you. I also have for each of my relatives, I do have their birth and death dates. I also have what archival pieces are related to them. And then I have it, each person gets a number. This is just a way of organizing some of the artifacts that I have, and hopefully allowing me to retrieve my information a little more quickly. So as we go back into this, scanning your files is a high importance, and I think that that's a big, big, big asset. I don't know how many times I've heard that a box of photos was lost in a flood or a fire or any sort of moving, and they've lost in shipment or pieces like that. I always say, if you're shipping anything or if you're mailing anything, scan it beforehand. You don't know where it's going to end up. And it's just a matter, you'll kick yourself if you don't. And I think that that's a big, big, big thing that I would recommend. So as I said in the beginning, the Melting Pot Project. Now this project is something that I initiated while I was at the Lawrence County Historical Society. They have a great selection of within their immigration collection. Now, within their immigration collection, they have declarations of intention. This is the first step to becoming a citizen. You have to declare your intent. And then you have a petition for naturalization. A petition for naturalization is simply just that. They're petitioning for to become a fully naturalized citizen. While we were at the Historical Society, a group of volunteers and staff members there scanned all of the declarations of intention. And so I give them kudos. They've done a yeoman's work on scanning all of these pieces to make them preserve them, make them more accessible, and allow this asset to be accessed by our community. If you do need access to any of these declarations of intention, you want to do a search, you are welcome to contact them. But this is just a sample of, I know that a lot of the melting pot project, I use the term melting pot because these are immigration documents, and the United States is a great melting pot of various cultures, various traditions, and various walks and beliefs of people. And what they're doing now, and I've been trying to help with it as well as I continue, is that we're collating all of the data. We're transcribing the data that was within these documents, and so you can actually look at the immigration trends on how many German identified nationals came to the United States to become a citizen. Now, these are only looking at citizens, but you can also tell what the height and weight is and the BMI of a German immigrant was between 1906 and 1908. So it offers a great deal of information, not only about German immigrants, but also about many other walks of life that came into the area. But you might find this within your within your local historical society, your local courthouse, or your repositories that you're looking into. And so I wanted to thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm going to probably cut it down to about an hour, seeing how we're at 45 minutes right now. But next Friday, I plan on doing this again. I think it's a great time to collect, group, and have a great understanding of why we need to really rely on our family ties during this time. I think that our family is a really strong nucleus in which we live and we survive. And so if we're able to not only connect with our family, but our community, we're able to really find strength there. So if you do need to contact me, that's my email. That's my website as well. I do monthly blog posts. So if you want to check out our blog, it is phist/blog. And let me just take you there now while we have some time. So here's our blog, well, our website in general. And so you can see the different workshops coming up. I did put in there today's workshop, the intro, and I did put the blog in as well. So there's myself, but then the interesting pieces that come along, McGee's history. I was just in New England recently talking about the National Archives, talking about the formation, but I do have this going on a monthly basis, so you're welcome to join us, join following. You can read a bit more about history, about genealogy, about restoration. You're welcome to join us there. So thank you all for joining this evening. I appreciate you all joining. If you are tuning in later, thank you. And I hope to see you next Friday at 6 o'clock. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.